If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Go for it. Have some fun.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Bauer, and I want to thank WNST for having me here today. And what a great time it is to be a sports fan here in Baltimore. Between the Orioles still being relevant this late in the year to the Ravens training camp getting ready to start the 21st of this month with rookies reporting. You know, me personally, I'm ecstatic to finally see the Ravens get back on the field. What a classic run they had last year. However, there are a few things that I'm actually really looking forward to once the Ravens do report to training camp this year. There's a lot of questions that I have personally that I'm definitely going to be, keeping an eye on, and some of the storylines that are going to evolve out of training camp this year. The first one on my list, number one, is how exactly the new Ravens offense is going to look under Jim Caldwell. This is Jim Caldwell's first offseason to actually implement any kind of change in the offensive system that the Ravens were running. And in my opinion, last year, yes, once Cam Cameron was fired, there were little things, odds and ends that, Jim did change. However, it wasn't really his own system. Most of Cam's basic things were still in there. However, they did manage, once Caldwell took over, 400.6 yards of offense per game with 146.4 rushing yards and 254.1 passing yards, and also averaging 27.3 points per game. Now, that's strictly under a few tweaks. Yes, obviously it still has something to do with Cam Cameron still being in town and still using the system. However, it's going to be interesting to see this year, what the Ravens are planning on doing on offense. With Vonta Leach no longer here, granted, the Ravens weren't going to pay him that kind of money to, stick around and, be on the field for that limited of plays and pay him that kind of money. However, I still think they are open to bringing him back, just not at that price tag. With that being said, it's going to be interesting to me to see how Ray Rice and Bernard Pierce are going to be used this year. With the offensive line mostly intact, except for the retirement of Matt Burke, with Gino Gradkowski, as Nestor mentioned earlier, he's taken over at the center position, and to me, Kelechi Osemele and Marshall Yonder were really the true unsung heroes of the Ravens last year, and how they performed, spoke words to me as far as they had heart and soul and in the trenches each and every play. So it's going to be important to see how they're going to be utilized with Caldwell this year as well. And another thing that I'm really looking forward to and really curious about, and still kind of leaves a little bit of a bad taste with me in my mouth, just because of the fact that I have done a lot of community positive work, and this man who's no longer with the Ravens anymore, Anquan Boldin, I'm anxious to see what the Ravens are going to do without him this year and who's actually going to step up. Boldin, obviously, people are going to argue the fact that he wasn't that productive during the season. However, in the postseason, he definitely did turn it up a notch. And the Ravens are going to have to, be responsible to find out who is actually going to make up and take his spot. He leaves behind 65 receptions for 921 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns as well. So, that's a big shoes to fill. And for our players that we have on the roster now, it's going to be difficult to find somebody that's going to be able to step up and do that. Now, with Boldin no longer being here, obviously Torrey Smith is definitely going to step up in the number one receiving role, and rightfully so. His 49 receptions last year for 855 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns was actually 4th on the team. Now, I'm not sure if fans are aware of that, but he actually was 4th on the team in receptions last year. And, with no doubt, Joe's going to look his way a little more often, and his receptions are actually going to increase as well. His route running abilities have improved tenfold over the last few seasons. You can see that just on the tape. He's coming out of his routes crisper and everything as well, and he still is a dangerous threat. Speed-wise as well. With Torrey bumping up to the number one receiving role, it's obviously going to be Jacoby Jones is going to slide into the number 2 role as well. In 2012, Jones just managed 30 receptions for 406 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, we all know Jacoby Jones, and he has huge big play capabilities, which we saw in the postseason as well. However, it's been a while since he's been a number 2 receiver in the league. He's never, ever caught more than 51 balls in a year, and that was back in Houston a few years ago. However, along with Torrey Smith, they do run a huge, deep threat with two speedsters on the outside. And here's where it gets interesting for me and it's obvious to me that training camp is going to decide this factor, whether or not the Ravens have a number 3 receiver that they want to use on their roster, or if they're going to go to the outside with the spare cap money that they do have left over. Now, Tandon Doss is obviously the Ravens' favorite to go ahead and take over that number 3 spot. As we all know, he's been groomed for Anquan Bolden's role. However, he's a strong training camp guy, he's a strong preseason guy, but for some reason it's never really translated over to the actual season. But with Bolden being gone now, Tannen's going to have that opportunity. And despite him, if that doesn't work out, the Ravens have Deontay Thompson, Tommy Streeter, and by the way, Tommy, if you're out there, congratulations on your new daughter, and Laquan Williams, and the 7th round draft pick Aaron Mellett out of Elon. So there's a lot of unanswered questions as in who's going to take over Bolden's position and who's going to actually, bump up into that slot this year. I obviously do expect Dennis Pitta and Ed Dixon to really increase their looks this year and really increase their receptions this year as well, because we all know in Jim Caldwell's offense when he was in Indianapolis, the tight end was a huge target for the quarterbacks up there and all that as well. And all that being said, we're going to flip to the defensive side, too, with some things that I'm looking forward to in training camp. Is now that the team had to say farewell to several members of the Ravens defense that, by the way, ranked 17th in the NFL last year. And I'm excited to see what looks like a large improvement on paper, but we all know that the game isn't played on paper, it's played on the football field as well. I'm very happy about the addition of Elvis Dumerville, and we look forward to seeing what he brings in the 63.5 career sacks that he brings from Denver to go alongside of a slimmer, more fit Terrell Suggs and a healthy Terrell Suggs. So if y'all like what you're listening to and you want to follow me, feel free to follow me on Twitter at SportGuyFNN or SportGuyRSR, and you can follow me on Facebook at Russell Street Report or SportGuy.
Nice audition, Brian. Good job, man. Good job. Have you done radio before or no?
I've actually done a few guests.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.